give a big hand for Ray McGovern.
Frank Grayfield was a major in the Danish Army. Before the war in Iraq, he and his colleagues said there probably weren't any weapons of mass destruction, and this is a whole bunch of hype for the U.S. government. Their leaders said there were great dangers from weapons of mass destruction that Iraq had, and that they had to go with the United States. So Frank released a whole bevy of classified documents to the leading periodical in Copenhagen, and just came out of jail for a jail sentence for doing that. We are honoring him with the Sam Adams Associates for Integrity and Intelligence Award for this year, and that's going to be a special thing to do here in Copenhagen. I would like to, in my time here, talk a little bit about being a Virginian, like a descendant of George Mason, James Madison, those people that took the Bill of Rights really seriously. Some of you may know that George Mason in particular was one of the principal drafters of the Constitution. He lived about 2 miles from where I live now, in Arlington. I checked into him because I was making a speech at George Mason University. I was interested in where he went to college. Thomas Jefferson went to William & Mary, which my son, who's a William & Mary graduate, really kind of likes to rub into the other four, who are all UVA graduates. In any case, it turned out that George Mason never went to college, never went to high school. George Mason never went to grammar school. He spent his formative years, you might say he was homeschooled, but he did it himself with the help of his uncle's library. You see, his father died in the Potomac in a swimming accident. And the thing that impressed me most about George Mason is that even though he was one of the authors of the Constitution, he refused to sign it. He refused to sign it. Yeah, he wouldn't sign it without the Bill of Rights. He wouldn't even sign his own creation. So that's how seriously he took the Eighth Amendment against cruel and inhuman punishment. And that's what I hear on a clear evening when the wind is blowing up from the south on the Potomac, and I hear George Mason rolling over in his grave and saying, "My God, what did these guys do? What did, our descendants, John Warner, the head of the Senate Armed Services Committee, wouldn't even look into Abu Ghraib. What's going on with these guys?" And, I really feel sorry for them, but what can we do? Well, what we can do is expose this, and what we can do is move against this, and what we can do is end torture for once and for all right now. I'd like to say, first off, that torture is a moral problem. And I think most of you will agree. When we learned ethics and moral theology, there was a category of evil called intrinsic evil, or always evil, like slavery, like rape. That's the category that torture is in, violation of a human person, okay? Now, slavery, of course, wasn't ended in this country until the Emancipation Proclamation. So I guess it was okay before then, huh? And there are laws against rape, but I guess rape was okay before the law. The point is, folks, that torture isn't wrong because there are laws against it. There are laws against it because it's just wrong, okay? And the whole civilized world realizes that. And that's important, okay? And that's where we need to start out. Now, how did it get authorized? Well, we know. Lots of stuff is available out there, and if you read other things like afterdowningstreet.org and other websites, you will know these things, but most people don't know them. And I'll just parenthetically say that the biggest sea change that I've seen in the body politic in this country over the 45 years I've been in this town is the fact that we no longer have, in any real sense, a free media. That is big. And that puts a big burden on us to get the word out. So, how did it get authorized? Well, we know that on the evening of 9/11, After the president made his speech to the nation, he gathered a small group that included Rumsfeld, Bennett, the head of the CIA. It included Richard Clarke. How do we know this? Well, Richard Clarke wrote about it in his book, okay? What did the president say? Well, he was talking about retaliating for what happened earlier today, okay? And of all people, Rumsfeld says, well, you know, international law, has some constraints on who we can retaliate against. And according to Clarke, the president bit his head off and said, I don't want to hear about that. I don't care what the international lawyers say, we're going to kick some ass. Okay? Now that set the tone, folks. That set the tone at 9:30 on the evening of 9/11. What happened next? Well, this used to be speculation on my part, but now I think it's pretty solid. The president went to George Tenet, the head of the CIA, and said, we're going to be capturing some people in Afghanistan. You got some guys who can, get the stuff from them? And George Tenet said, well, yes, sir. And he goes back, he finds 12, 15 guys left over from Vietnam who know how to do these things. He comes back and he says, well, Mr. President, yeah, I found 12 guys, well, you'll understand, Mr. President, that they'd like you to sign the authorization. Alberto! Alberto! Get Gonzalez in here. Yes, Mr. President. Alberto, can I sign this? Well, Mr. President, could I check it out and get back to you tomorrow? Yeah, all right. What does Gonzalez do? He goes down the corridor there to the Vice President's suite of offices to a fellow named David Addington, summa cum laude graduate from Georgetown University, I'm sad to say. And David Addington looks at Gonzalez and says, yeah, you really came to the right place here. I got this memo all set to go. It says that Geneva is obsolete. It says it's quaint, and that the president is not bound by that. It does talk about the War Crimes Act, but it says, well, the president can overrule that as well. So here, take it to the president. Gonzalez does the next day, over his signature, 25th of January, 2002. Okay? Yeah, all right, so we're into January now, 2002. And long story short, the president says, this sounds pretty good to me. Colin Powell, who's going to be given a big award from John Warner in the next day or two, what does he do? He owes his whole life, his whole career, his whole name, his whole sort of shtick to the Army. Well, he thinks maybe this isn't right, so he has his lawyer, William Howard Taft IV, contact the White House lawyer, Gonzalez. And Powell says, I think this could really be a big blow to U.S. military discipline, which has always been very, very lawful on the battlefield. And besides that, it could introduce ambiguities into the status of this or that prisoner. And so Gonzalez presented that to the president. He said, this Powell again. The president said, we don't have to worry about that. And on the 7th of February, remember the date, folks, the 7th of February, 2002, the president signed a torture order. It's the smoking gun. And
You've been wanting to say this
That's
for
right.
a long time.
Lock them up. Lock them up. Lock the bastards up and throw the key away. Far away! A few years down and get Mo, then life in Abu Ghraib. Make sure their sorry asses never see the light of day. Think you got it? 2, 3, 4. Lock them up. Lock them up. Lock them up. Lock them up. Lock the bastards up and throw the key away. Far away!